Poor girl saves a stranger. He returns as a millionaire with a ring and a secret that changes her life. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is now. Subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The rain fell in sheets, a cold curtain over the South Bronx where streetlights flickered like dying stars. Lena, 21, hunched against the storm, her boots splashing through oily puddles. A plastic bag of cans clinked at her side, scavenged for her and her brother's next meal. Pete at the yard paid for cans, a familiar face. Her scarf, frayed but warm, clung to her neck as she moved, eyes scanning the shadows. The slums pulsed with danger. Shouts, broken glass, a restless hum. But Lena knew its rhythm, stepping light, her heart a steady drum. A groan cut through the rain's hiss. She froze, hand tightening on the bag. Down an alley where dumpsters loomed like hunched beasts, a shape lay crumpled. A man, suit torn, blood streaking his face. His chest rose faintly, each breath a fight. Lena's pulse quickened. Walk away, her mind hissed. Gangsters roamed these streets, their knives sharp, their grudges sharper. But his fingers twitched, reaching for nothing, and something stirred. A memory of her mother's hand, cold and still, years ago. She dropped the bag, cans rattling, and knelt beside him. Rain soaked her knees. His face, bruised and swollen, held a strange softness, like a boy lost in a dream. "Hey," she whispered, voice sharp to cut her fear. No answer. Blood matted his dark hair, pooling beneath him. Lena glanced over her shoulder, nothing but rain and shadows. Her hands, calloused from sorting scrap, moved fast, checking his pulse. Weak, but there. She couldn't leave him. Not like this. "Hold on," she muttered, as if he could hear. She looped his arm over her shoulder, her slight frame straining under his weight. He was tall, heavier than he looked, a locket resting heavy at his chest. The alley seemed to watch, its silence thick. Lena dragged him, step by grunting step, toward her building 3 blocks away. Her breath burned, but she didn't stop, not when her scarf slipped or rain stung her eyes. The stairs to her apartment groaned under their weight, the bulb above her door spitting sparks. Inside, the air smelled of damp plaster and yesterday's rice. Lena eased him onto a thin mattress, her brother's comic books scattered nearby. She bolted the door, heart hammering. The man stirred, a low moan escaping. Lena grabbed a rag, water, and a half-empty bottle of antiseptic from a shelf. Her hands shook as she cleaned his wounds, the rag turning pink. His suit, once fine, was ruined, but the locket, old and worn, held a quiet weight, like a relic her mother might have cherished. "Stay with me," she said more to herself. She bandaged his head with a torn shirt, her movements quick, precise. Her brother, Tommy, asleep in the next room, didn't stir. Good. He didn't need to see this. Lena's eyes darted to the window. Rain lashed the glass, but no shadows moved outside. Yet, the gangsters might come back. She pushed the thought down, focusing on the man's shallow breaths. He mumbled, words slurred, his hand groping for the locket. Lena leaned closer. "Clara," he breathed, the name soft, like a prayer. His eyes, green and glazed, flickered open for a moment, meeting hers. They held pain, yes, but also a strange recognition, as if this crumbling room wasn't foreign to him. Lena's brow furrowed. Clara. The name tugged at her, a whisper from her mother's stories of women who'd loved and faded in these streets. She shook her head, shoving the thought away. He was a stranger, nothing more. Yet as she tucked a blanket over him, her fingers lingered, and she wondered what secret he carried, quiet as a shadow in dawn's light. The rain battered Lena's apartment, a tinny drumbeat on the roof, as she knelt by the stranger's side. The bulb overhead buzzed, casting jagged shadows on the peeling walls. Daniel, still pale, lay on the mattress, his breaths shallow but steadier. Lena's hands, stained with his blood, moved fast, swapping the soaked rag for a fresh one. Her brother, Tommy, slept in the next room, his soft snores a faint anchor in the storm's roar. She glanced at the bolted door, still secure, no footsteps outside. Good, the gangsters hadn't followed, yet. She pressed the rag to Daniel's forehead, wiping away grit and blood. His locket, heavy with memory, swung slightly, its silver worn by time. Her eyes lingered on it, then flicked to a cracked photo on the shelf. Her mother, smiling, her hair braided like Lena's. Mrs. Cruz, the neighbor, had once shared soup like her mother did. The memory hit hard, her mother's voice singing low, promising better days. Lena shook it off, focusing on the task. "Don't die on me," she muttered, her voice sharp, cutting through her own fear. Daniel stirred, his fingers twitching toward the locket. He gripped it, knuckles white, like it held his soul. Lena paused, rag hovering. His lips moved, soundless at first, then a faint whisper. "Clara, please." That name again. It pricked something in her. A story her mother told of a friend named Clara, mending clothes by lantern light, her laughter a fleeting light in these streets. She leaned closer, her braid brushing the mattress. "Who's Clara?" she asked, not expecting an answer. His eyes cracked open, green and feverish, meeting hers for a heartbeat. They closed again, but his grip on the locket tightened as if it were a lifeline. Lena's gaze darted to the window. Rain smeared the glass, blurring the world outside. Her heart raced. She needed to keep moving, keep him alive. She grabbed a chipped mug, filled it with water, and lifted his head, her arms straining. "Drink," she said, voice firm. A few drops slid down his chin, but he swallowed, a small victory. The apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in. A draft carried the scent of damp plaster and old rice, mixing with the metallic tang of blood. Lena's eyes caught the photo again, her mother's face a silent witness. She remembered nights like this, her mother tending a neighbor's fever, her hands steady despite exhaustion. "You'd know what to do," Lena whispered, half to the photo, half to herself. She set the mug down, the room's grimness stark against her mother's memory. Daniel groaned, shifting slightly. The locket slipped from his grasp, falling open with a soft click. Lena's breath caught. Inside, a faded photo, a woman, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a faint smile. The face tugged at her, like a melody half remembered. She knew those eyes, or ones like them, from the women who'd shared soup or stories with her mother, their lives etched in these streets. Her mother's words echoed. "We help where we can, Lena. It's what keeps us human." She snapped the locket shut, heart racing. This wasn't her business. He was a stranger, not a puzzle to solve. But the photo, the name Clara, felt like a thread tying him to this place, to her. She tucked the locket under his shirt, her fingers grazing his skin, warm, alive. "Stay with me," she said, softer now. Less a command than a plea. A creak from the stairs outside made her freeze. She shot to her feet, rag dropping, and crept to the window. Nothing but rain and shadows. Her pulse hammered. If the gangsters came, she had no plan, no weapon but a kitchen knife. She glanced at Daniel, then at Tommy's door. She'd protect them both somehow. Her mother's strength, her quiet fire, burned in her now. Lena returned to Daniel, checking his bandages. The bleeding had slowed, but he needed more than she could give. A clinic was blocks away, too far in this storm, too risky with gangsters prowling. She sat back, knees drawn up, watching his chest rise and fall. The locket's image lingered in her mind. A woman who'd walked these slums, loved here, suffered here. Clara. The name felt like a secret, unspoken, heavy as the silence between them, like a song caught in her throat. Dawn crept through the cracked window, a gray smear against the South Bronx's endless rain. Lena sat by Daniel, her knees tucked close, the rag in her hand now dry and stiff. The apartment stirred with small sounds, Tommy's snores, the drip of a leak in the corner, the faint buzz of the bulb. Daniel's chest rose steadier now, his face less pale but still bruised, a map of violence. His wounds cleaned, no longer bled, though pain lingered in his breaths. Lena's eyes burned from no sleep, but she didn't move, her gaze flicking between him and the bolted door. The gangsters hadn't come, yet. He stirred, a low groan escaping. His eyes, green and clear, opened, darting around the room, peeling walls, Tommy's comics, the chipped mug by his side. They landed on Lena, sharp with questions. She straightened and handed him the mug. "Drink," she said, voice clipped, hiding her relief. He took it, hands shaky, and sipped, wincing as he shifted. "Where am I?" he rasped, voice rough like gravel. "My place," Lena said, standing to grab a fresh rag. "Found you in an alley, beat to hell. You're lucky." She kept her tone flat, but her heart thumped. He was awake, talking. That meant something. She knelt again, dabbing at a cut on his cheek. He flinched but didn't pull away, his eyes tracking her hands, then her face. "Why'd you help me?" he asked, quieter now, like he didn't trust the answer. Lena shrugged, focusing on the rag. "Couldn't leave you there." Her mother's voice echoed. "We help where we can." She pushed it down, glancing at the locket on his chest, its silver edge peeking from his torn shirt. Clara. The name stirred a memory. Her mother's stories of a friend, kind but lost to time, who'd shared these streets' burdens. She wanted to ask, but his gaze, steady and searching, stopped her. It wasn't just gratitude in his eyes. Something deeper, like he saw more than her scarred hands and tired face. He set the mug down, fingers brushing the locket. A habit. "I'm Daniel," he said, voice stronger. He glanced at his torn suit, no phone, no trace of his other life, and stayed silent. "Thank you." The words felt formal, out of place in the cramped room. Lena nodded, tossing the rag aside. "Lena, you owe me a shirt." A faint smile tugged at his lips, gone fast. He leaned back, wincing, and scanned the room again, his gaze lingering on the photo of her mother. "You live here alone?" he asked. "With my brother," she said, sharp, protective. She stood, grabbing a can of beans from a shelf. "You hungry?" He nodded, and she moved to the hot plate, her hands quick, slicing the can open with a knife. The air filled with the tinny scent of beans, mixing with damp plaster. She felt his eyes on her, not heavy but steady, like he was piecing something together. It unnerved her, but she didn't turn. As the beans warmed, Daniel spoke, voice low. "My mother, she grew up in a place like this." Lena froze, spoon in hand. His words came slow, deliberate. "South Bronx, years ago. Someone helped her once, a stranger. Gave her a job, a chance. It changed everything." He paused, fingers grazing the locket. "She never forgot." Lena turned, meeting his gaze. His eyes held a weight, a story she didn't know but felt, like her mother's songs about women who carried on. She set a bowl of beans in front of him, her hands steadier than her heart. "Sounds like she was lucky," she said, voice soft. He nodded, taking the bowl, his fingers brushing hers for a moment. The touch lingered, warm, like a spark in the cold room. Lena sat across from him, watching him eat, her mind spinning. His mother, this place, Clara. The threads wove together, tugging at her own losses, her mother's quiet strength. A creak from Tommy's door broke the moment. Lena shot up, knife in hand, but it was just Tommy rubbing his eyes. "Lena?" he mumbled, staring at Daniel. Tommy peeked in, eyes wide, before Lena shooed him back. She forced a smile, setting the knife down. "It's okay, kid. Go back to bed." Tommy shuffled off, but Daniel's gaze softened, watching the boy. "He's why you stay," he said, not a question. Lena didn't answer, but her silence said enough. She looked at Daniel, really looked, and saw him anew. Not just a stranger, but a man tied to these streets, to a past like hers. His gratitude, his story, shifted something in her, like a familiar face under starlight. The locket rested, a quiet witness, and she wondered about Clara, about the kindness that shaped him, and how it echoed her own. The morning sun, weak and watery, slipped through the apartment's cracked window, painting stripes on the peeling walls. Lena stood by the hot plate, stirring a pot of oatmeal, the spoon scraping rhythmically. Daniel sat up on the mattress, wincing, his strength returning slow but sure, the bruises on his face fading to dull purple. Lena changed his bandages, her hands steady, coaxing life back into him. Tommy, cross-legged on the floor, hummed a tune, his small voice bright. The air held a fragile calm, scented with oats and damp plaster, but Lena glanced at the door, tense, her knife within reach. The gangsters hadn't come, but the streets never forgot. Daniel shifted, tugging his torn shirt straight. "I should go," he said, voice low, testing the words. Lena's spoon paused as she turned. "You're not walking out like that," she said, sharp, but her gaze softened, tracing the way he gripped the mattress, like he was anchoring himself. He didn't argue, just nodded, his green eyes catching hers, grateful but guarded, like a man carrying too many secrets. Tommy glanced up, his grin gap-toothed, innocent. "You staying for breakfast?" he asked. Daniel's face softened, a smile breaking through. "If it's okay with your sister," he said, looking at Lena. She shrugged, spooning oatmeal into bowls, but her chest tightened. Tommy's smile was rare these days, a flicker of the boy he'd been before their mother's death. She handed Daniel a bowl, their fingers brushing, warm and brief, like a spark in the cold room. They ate in silence, the clink of spoons loud against the streets alive outside. Footsteps, the churn of life. Daniel's gaze roamed the apartment, lingering on a dripping pipe in the corner, its steady plink a counterpoint to the rain's fade. He set his bowl down, standing with a grunt, and moved to the pipe, his steps careful but sure. Got a wrench? He asked, voice steady. Lena raised an eyebrow, wiping her hands on her jeans. You're not fixing anything in that shape. But he waved her off, already kneeling, his fingers probing the pipe's rusted joint. She sighed, digging through a drawer for a rusty wrench, and handed it over. He worked fast, muscles tensing under his torn shirt, the wrench clanking as the drip slowed, then stopped. Tommy clapped, eyes wide. Tommy watched Daniel fix the pipe, grinning. You're strong. Daniel chuckled, a sound warm and unguarded. Lena watched, her chest tight. The act, small, practical, felt heavier, like a bridge spanning their worlds. Her mother's strength hummed in such moments, patching leaks, holding life together. Daniel's hands, steady despite his wounds, mirrored that resolve. She turned away, hiding the ache, and cleared the bowls, her movements quick to drown the feeling. Pete'd want these cans tomorrow. But Daniel's gaze followed her, soft like he saw the weight she carried. I'll be back, Daniel said, standing, his voice firm now. He touched the locket, a habit, and met her eyes. He avoided her questions, his past locked behind the locket's weight. I owe you more than a shirt. Lena crossed her arms. Just don't die out there, she said, half joking, but her voice caught. He nodded, a promise in his silence, and moved to the door. Tommy waved and Daniel ruffled his hair, a gesture so natural it stung Lena's heart. At the door, Daniel paused, glancing back. Clara, she'd have liked you, he said, the words soft, heavy with meaning. Before Lena could ask, he was gone, the stairs creaking under his steps. She bolted the door, her pulse racing, and leaned against it. The apartment suddenly too quiet. Mrs. Cruz's voice echoed outside, calling Jaime home. Tommy hummed again, oblivious, but Lena's eyes fell on the pipe, now silent, a testament to their fleeting bond. She found it later, tucked under the mattress, a scrap of paper, his handwriting neat despite his state. I'll find you, for Clara. Her breath hitched, the words, simple, tied to his mother's name, to the locket's faded face, felt like a vow, a memory she hadn't known she shared. Clara's kindness, Daniel's story, her mother's legacy. They wove together, unnoticed until now, like a thread pulling tight across her heart. Lena folded the note, slipping it into her pocket, and looked out the window. The slums stretched on, gray and unyielding, but something in her shifted, small but profound. Like a glance held too long, spring's warmth softened the South Bronx, the slums breathing, unyielding, under a gray morning sky. Lena, now 22, moved through the streets, her boots crunching gravel, a bag of cans slung over her shoulder. Tommy, trailing behind, kicked a pebble, his chatter about superheroes a bright thread in the dawn. 4 months had passed since Daniel left. His note, I'll find you, for Clara, tucked in her pocket, its edges worn, holding hope. She didn't wait for him, not anymore, but her steps carried a quiet rhythm, as if her heart still listened. The apartment hadn't changed, peeling walls, the fixed pipe, but Lena had. She smiled more, shared cans of soup with neighbors, taught Tommy to braid his own hair. Her kindness to Daniel had rippled, small acts stitching her to the world. Yet at night, alone, she traced the note's words, the ache of his absence sharp, like a crack in a village well. Had he forgotten? She pushed the thought down, focusing on Tommy's laugh, the clink of cans, the rhythm of survival. At the recycling yard, Lena sorted her haul, her hands quick, calloused. Tommy sat on a crate, sketching heroes in a notebook, sighing, wish he'd come back. The hero bore a locket, like Daniel's. Old Pete, who'd bought her mother's cans years ago, tossed her bills. Good haul, kid, he said, and Lena nodded, pocketing the cash. She glanced at Tommy, his head bent, and felt a surge of fierce love. He was why she fought. Daniel's words echoed, he's why you stay, and her resolve deepened. At the market, Mrs. Cruz whispered of arrests. Gangsters caught last month, tied to a corporate feud Daniel exposed over some big technology. Lena's grip on her bag eased, the knife in her pocket less heavy. Back home, she cooked rice, the hot plate hissing. Tommy read his comic aloud, voice rising with each hero's triumph. She half listened, her eyes on the window where the slums stretched, unyielding. A knock at the door jolted her. Her hand hovered, then stilled, the gangster threat fading. Through the crack, Mrs. Cruz's son, Jaime, always running errands for her, held an envelope. For Lena, he said, then vanished into the street. She tore it open, heart racing. The handwriting was neat, familiar. Daniel. Lena, it began. I've been looking for you. He wrote of healing, of battles fought, unseen, for her, of owing her more than words. I've kept my world hidden, but you'll know soon. I'm coming back, soon. No address, no number, just his name and a promise. Lena's hands shook, the note a spark in her palms. Tommy looked up, curious. What's that? He asked, but she tucked it away, forcing a smile. Nothing, kid. Eat your rice. Her voice was steady, but her heart raced, hope and doubt tangling like vines. She moved through the days faster now, her steps lighter. At the market, she shared a loaf with an old woman, their laughter soft. She helped a neighbor carry crates, her strength a quiet gift. Each act felt like a thread, tying her to Daniel's promise, to Clara's kindness, to her mother's smile guiding her. But the doubt grew too. Had he meant it? Was he alive? The slums didn't care, their breath relentless, and Lena's heart bore the rift, a longing she couldn't name. One evening, as dusk painted the sky gold, Lena sat on the stoop, Tommy asleep inside. She pulled out the note, reading it under the streetlight's flicker. It sealed her hope, but cracked open a deeper ache, for connection, for a life beyond survival. Her mother's face flashed, singing of love, of holding on. Lena's fingers tightened on the paper. A shadow moved across the street, too quick to catch. Lena stood, hand at her side, eyes scanning the dark. Nothing, just the slum's breath, voices, life. She exhaled, the air charged like before a storm. Daniel was out there, his letter a vow in her hands. She folded it, slipping it beside the first, and looked at the sky, stars faint behind the city's glow. The ache didn't fade, but it shifted, unveiling a hunger for more, for him, for them, for a future she couldn't yet see. Tommy called from inside, sleepy, and Lena turned, her steps quick. The door clicked shut, the slums fading behind her. She'd keep going for Tommy, for herself. But Daniel's words burned, a quiet fire, and she knew whatever came, their threads were too tight to break. Summer's heat pressed heavy on the South Bronx, the slums unyielding under a hazy sky. Lena, her braid damp against her neck, hauled a bag of cans through the streets, Tommy skipping beside her, his chatter about a new comic clear against the city's pulse. 6 months since Daniel left, his letter a lingering vow, its words, "I'm coming back. Soon," faded but unforgotten, a vow carried in her heart. She didn't wait for him, not anymore, but her steps held a quiet rhythm, as if her heart still listened. The slums hadn't changed, cracked pavement, shouting voices, the churn of life. But Lena had, her small kindnesses weaving her tighter to the world, like threads in her mother's old songs. At the apartment, she dropped the bag, cans clattering, and wiped her brow. Tommy sprawled on the floor sketching, while her mother's photo watched from the shelf, a steady anchor. Lena moved to the hot plate, rice hissing, when a knock rattled the door. Her hand hovered, then stilled, the gangster threat long faded. Her hand twitched toward the knife, then stilled. "Who's there?" she called, voice sharp. A pause, then a voice low and familiar. "Lena, it's me." Her breath caught. Daniel. She unbolted the door, her pulse quickened, and there he stood. Taller than she remembered, his suit crisp, no trace of bruises, his green eyes, soft but intense, locked on hers. Tommy looked up, eyes wide. "The superhero guy," he yelped, scrambling to his feet and hugging Daniel, chattering. "You're staying, right?" Daniel smiled, ruffling Tommy's hair. But it was Lena he watched, like she was the only thing in the room. "You found me," she said, voice steady, though her pulse raced. "I promised," he said, stepping inside. The air shifted, charged like before a storm. He glanced around, peeling walls, the fixed pipe, and his shoulders eased as if the room grounded him. Pete'd nod at this return. Lena crossed her arms, braid swinging. "Took you long enough." Her tone was light, but her eyes searched his, hunting for the man she'd saved, not this polished stranger. He caught it, his smile fading. "I stayed away to expose the rivals behind the ambush. I uncovered their plans, turned evidence over. It's over now," he said, voice low. "Those gangsters won't hurt anyone now." Tommy tugged Daniel's sleeve, holding up a drawing. "Look, it's you!" A stick figure with a locket, saving the day. Tommy's sketches now included Lena, Daniel, a family. Tommy clung to Daniel's hand, his smile trusting. Daniel laughed, but his gaze flicked to Lena, heavy with meaning. She turned to the hot plate, stirring rice, her hands quick to hide the warmth in her chest. "You hungry?" she asked, not looking back. Always, he said, the word a vow beyond food. They sat, bowls of rice steaming, Tommy chattering between bites. Daniel ate slowly, his eyes tracing the room. She looks like you, he said, soft, nodding to her mother's photo. Lena's spoon paused. She was stronger, she said, voice quiet, but her heart tugged, remembering his story. Clara shaped by kindness in these slums. The threads tightened, their pasts weaving closer. After dinner, Tommy yawned, curling up with his drawing. Lena nodded toward the door. Walk with me, she said, not a question. Daniel followed, the evening air, carrying voices, softer now, greeting them. Mrs. Cruz's voice drifted nearby, Jaime's footsteps echoing. They walked in silence, her boots crunching, his steps measured, until they reached the alley where she'd found him, its shadows gentler in the evening light. Lena stopped, her braid catching the breeze. This is it, she said, voice low, where it started. Daniel's eyes darkened, tracing the spot where he'd lain, bleeding. I'd be dead without you, he said, his voice raw. He touched his locket, a habit. I need to tell you something. Lena's pulse quickened, but she nodded, arms crossed, waiting. He took a breath, words slow, deliberate. I'm a CEO. My company's big, Lena. That night it was a setup. Rivals hired those men to take me out. They wanted my company's tech secrets, willing to kill for it. Her eyes widened, but she stayed silent, letting him speak. I hid who I was because I didn't know who to trust. But you didn't need to know. You just acted. She looked away, the alley's grit blurring. A CEO. The word felt distant, yet his voice, his eyes were the same, tied to Clara, to this place. Why come back? She asked, sharp, though her heart ached for the answer. He stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm, warm, grounding. Because of you, he said. Because of Clara. She was my mother, Lena. She grew up here, like yours. Clara knew your mother. They shared soup, mended clothes together, dreaming of better days in these streets. Your mother kept Clara's name quiet, her death too heavy to name. A stranger's kindness, a job, a chance, saved her. I wanted to honor that. I thought money, power would do it. I'm planning something for these streets, for her. But you showed me what it really means. Lena's breath hitched, her mother's strength humming within. She met his gaze, seeing not the CEO, but the man who'd fixed her pipe. Smiled at Tommy, carried Clara's memory like she carried her mother's. The alley seemed smaller, the world quieter, their shared story a gentle reckoning. I didn't do it for honor, she said, voice soft. I did it because it was right. He nodded, his hand lingering on her arm. I know. That's why I'm here. His eyes held hers, steady, like a promise kept. Lena's heart stirred, the ache of months fading, replaced by connection, fragile but real. She'd sought purpose, he redemption. And here, they'd found each other, not what they'd chased, but something truer, like a path to an unexpected home. They stood, silence wrapping them. The slums hum a distant song. The locket rested, a quiet witness. Clara's face joined by Lena's mother in memory. The stars above, faint through the city's glow, watched as they turned back, their steps in sync, the alley fading behind them. Autumn's chill kissed the South Bronx, the slums breathing, softer now under a golden dusk. Lena, her braid loose, walked with Daniel through the familiar alley, the spot where she'd found him a year ago bathed in fading light. Tommy skipped ahead, clutching a new comic, his laughter a bright note against the city's pulse. Daniel's hand brushed hers, warm, steady, the locket a quiet weight at his chest. Lena's heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something new, fragile as a breeze over rice fields. They stopped where the pavement cracked, the place she'd knelt by his broken body. Daniel's eyes, green and clear, traced the ground, then met hers, heavy with memory. Here, he said, voice low, raw. This is where it all changed. Lena nodded, her boots scuffing the grit, the vow of his notes, long gone, living in her, still in her bones. She didn't speak, letting the silence hold them, like hands clasped in quiet understanding. Tommy ran back, tugging Daniel's sleeve. Show her! He grinned, eyes wide. Daniel chuckled, ruffling Tommy's hair, but his gaze stayed on Lena, soft, unwavering. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box, its velvet worn but warm in the light. Lena's breath caught, her pulse a drum. He knelt, simply like a man offering his truth. Lena, he said, voice steady, you saved me, not just that night, but every day since. Marry me. The words landed soft, a spark in the dusk. Lena's eyes burned, her mother's courage steadying her. She looked at him, not the CEO, not the stranger, but Daniel, Clara's son, Tommy's hero, her anchor. Yes, she whispered, voice catching, and the world stilled, the slum's breath fading to a hum. He slipped a ring on her finger, simple, silver, like the locket, and stood, pulling her close. Tommy beamed, clutching Lena's hand. We're a family now. His joy was a melody in the air. Daniel's hand tightened on hers, his eyes bright. There's more, he said, glancing at the alley, the slums stretching beyond. I'm building something here for Clara. Homes, schools, jobs, her name on a future for all. My company's safe now, stronger for it. He paused, voice thick. It's because of you. Lena's chest tightened, her mother's face flashing. We help where we can. The project wasn't just bricks, it was their story, woven into the streets that shaped them. Lena vowed to shape it, her strength beside his. She'd build with him, for Tommy, for all. Mrs. Cruz would cheer this, Jaime too. She looked at the alley, its shadows long but lighter now. The gangster's threat a faded memory. The slums would change, not all at once, but enough, like a dawn breaking slow. Pete see hope in this. Her hand in his felt right, not a cure for every wound, but a shared healing, tender and incomplete. Tommy grabbed her other hand, his small fingers warm, and Lena smiled, the ache of loss softer, her mother's legacy alive in her. Her mother's stories of women enduring fueled her resolve. They turned, walking back, the sky deepening to indigo. The locket rested, a quiet witness, Clara's memory joined by Lena's mother in the stars above. The slums hummed, life, struggle, love, and Lena's steps matched Daniel's. Steady, sure. Tommy shared dreams of tomorrow, his voice a thread tying them together. Lena's ring caught the light, a small promise, like a breath of peace. The alley faded behind them, its grit a root, not a weight. Lena glanced at Daniel, his profile sharp in the dusk, and felt it. Home, not a place, but this moment, their hands clasped, Tommy's laugh, the future unwritten but shared. The stars blinked, faint through the city's glow, and Lena exhaled, her heart full, their lives a folk song, soft in the night. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can be found in the most surprising moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heartwarming Love Story. We bring you stories that touch the soul, renew your belief in kindness, and highlight what's truly important in life.